Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to the Planning and Highways Committee meeting today, the 25th of May. I've just got some introductions to make. So to start off with, thank you. Okay. Thank you to all members of the public, councillors and officers who are joining us today's meeting. Please be aware that the Council is live streaming this meeting direct to our YouTube channel. While the physical venue of the meeting is different, we are endeavouring to keep to the usual meeting format as best possible. There are, however, key changes that I ought to highlight. Councillors looking to speak will be invited to do so by the Chair in the usual manner and will need to come up to the lectern at the front and speak unless you have a microphone on your table. I don't think we've got a lectern this time, but there are two microphones either side. Please do not touch, I don't need that one. For councillors that have table microphones, the sound technician will be up-muting the microphones when you are invited to speak. If councillors have any concerns about hearing or seeing others in the meeting, please let the Chair or the Council Officer know straight away. If anyone uses hearing aids, please make sure to connect to the hearing loop for the best audio quality. Members of the public are now invited to participate in one of three ways: remotely via Zoom, physically in the meeting, or by submitting a written statement to be read out. For those looking to speak specifically about a planning application on the agenda, you will be invited to speak immediately before the committee considers the application. For those looking to speak on non-planning application business, you will be invited to speak during the public participation agenda item. Those members of the public looking to participate via the Zoom will be invited to do so first at the relevant point of the agenda. Zoom users are reminded to keep yourself muted until you are invited to speak. The technical host will prompt when it is your turn to speak via the chat function, so please keep an eye on your Zoom chat function. Members of the public physically in the meeting room will be invited to speak next. Please raise your hand to show you wish to speak, and the Chair will invite you to come to the lectern in order. Again, please refrain from touching the lectern or microphone. Finally, a council officer will read aloud any written statements that have been submitted. Public participation is limited to the maximum of 4 minutes per person and must be related to an item of business on the agenda. You do not need to state your name when you start speaking if you do not wish to, but we ask that you clearly state which agenda item you are speaking about. I must also run through a few key health and safety points for the physically in this meeting room. Face masks must be worn at all times except when you are speaking at the microphone or have a medical exemption. Fire exits are via the main entrance that you entered the venue through, or the disabled access entry point. The assembly point is out on West Down Road to the east of the building, and if you are able to, up towards the unmade section of Wilmington Road. In the venue, please limit your touching or shared surfaces as best possible, although I can confirm the tables, chairs and other such services and facilities have been cleaned ahead of the meeting. Please remain seated unless you are invited up to speak or need to take a comfort break. The toilet facilities are by the main entrance doors. When moving around the room, please maintain your distance from others. I would ask that participants looking to leave the meeting wait until the end of an agenda item to limit distraction for other participants. Voting will be done by the show of hands. Please be sure that make sure your hand is clearly lifted and keep it up until the Chair has called the vote. If you must leave the meeting for a comfort break, please do so in between agenda items wherever possible so as to limit distractions in the meeting. If the meeting goes into confidential session, a short 2 minutes break will be held to allow members of the public to leave and stop the live stream feed. To all present, please remember to show respect to others in the meeting and avoid interrupting where possible to enable others to follow the meeting. If any councillor feels concerned about any aspect of the meeting or discussion, please clearly state, point of order. The chair will then gesture for you to elaborate. If anyone present is felt to be behaving unacceptably, a proposal can be made by any councillor to have them ejected from the meeting. This would need to find a seconder and be voted upon before being enforced. Thank you for listening. On behalf of the council, I would like to thank everyone for attending this town council meeting. So we move on to agenda item 1, apologies for absence.
Thank you, President. There are no apologies, but there's only one absentee, that's Councillor Honeyman. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 2, disclosure of interest. To deal with any disclosure of members of any disclosure of pecuniary interest and interests other than pecuniary interests as defined under the Seaford Town Council Code of Conduct and Localism Act 2011 in relation to matters on the agenda. Councillor Edson.
It's about item 0349 on the agenda, 14 Sandgate Close, and the people there were one-time acquaintance of mine, so I think it would be fair for me to not take any part in that particular item.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Lord.
Well, definitely one interest. 35 Carlton Road. Is it Dixon who?
Can you take your mask off?
Is it Dixon who's put the application? D. If it is, I actually know Dixon.
It's Mr. D.
Ooh.
Ooh, yeah. That's the only information I've got.
Okay, it's Dixon. Okay, I do know Dixon, so I will not be taking that. I've also had quite a bit of email correspondence with the residents of 125 North Way prior to this meeting, but I don't think it excludes me from this meeting. It's just that she's my constituent, and I've had an email conversation with her, which anytime I'm quite able to make public to members of the committee anytime they wish to see so. There's nothing detrimental to the application. I just had several emails backwards and forwards.
Well, owing to the fact that this is, I think, the third application in over a long period, I don't think there's any surprise that the local member has been involved. So I don't think that restricts you in any way to contributing to the debate.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Chair. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got an interest in Edric House, Bishopstone Village, as I'm the Town Council representative.
On the...
and I'm a trustee of the Bishopstone United Charities, but
Thank you.
I don't think it restricts me.
No, it's not an interest as such.
Okay, is that all? Right. Moving on to public participation. To deal with any questions or brief representations from members of the public in accordance with relevant legislation and Seaford Town Council policy. In accordance with Town Council policy, members of the public wishing to speak on individual planning applications may do so immediately before each application. So at this point, any members of the public like to speak on non-planning matters at the moment? planning application matters at the moment? No? If
Sorry, are you asking about planning application matters or non-planning matters?
non-planning application matters at this point.
Okay.
But when I read out each planning application, I invite the public to, if they want to comment.
Thank you.
So we move on to planning applications. South Downs National Park. SDNP stroke 21/02342 stroke FUL Exceed Bridge, Eastbourne Road, Exceed. Application by East Sussex County Council for realignment and replacement of an existing single-lane bridge at the A259 over the River Cuckmere with the new two-lane bridge with footpath, including I can't get my words out, of the river and road embankments. Proposed provision of traffic calming measures between the Seven Sisters Country Park and Seaford. Alterations to access the provisions of shared surface to east of the Cuckmere Inn. Provision of habitat creation area to restore agricultural land back into wetland on the east bank of the Cuckmere Valley. The application is supported by the environmental statement. Members will note that we have got a report on between pages 9 and 12, which has been, I think is quite helpful from our planning officer. So first off, any members of the public like to comment on this application? Yes, sir. Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Simon McFarlane, and there were 3 points I've got to make about the plan application. The first one is the lack of controlled pedestrian crossing. A quote from the consultation says, "A recent survey identified a large number of bicycles and buggies being used around the pub and bridge. This area is incredibly popular with visitors and residents alike. People heading east from Seaford by foot or bus along the A259 need to cross the road at some point. A note from the consultation states, provision of any pelican or controlled crossing would spoil the natural landscape, especially at night. I'm disappointed that pedestrian safety comes second to aesthetics. I feel a large concrete bridge with 25,000 vehicles crossing daily would have a larger effect on the natural landscape than a single set of lights. Simple solutions such as cowls on the lights to limit the impact at night could be employed. I'm especially concerned about those with physical impairments who would find it more difficult to cross the road. I agree 2 paths are better than 1, but currently the traffic is forced to cross the bridge very slowly. There is a statement which says the road will be 30-mile-an-hour limited because the number of pedestrians likely on that stretch of the road and the fact otherwise widening of the carriageway would inevitably lead to faster speeds. At 20 miles an hour, 9 out of 10 pedestrians survive being hit by a vehicle. At 30 miles an hour, that drops to 5 out of 10, but at 40, only 1 out of 10 survive. On 17th of May, Lewis Police carried out speed checks on A259 by Sutton Corner. 17 vehicles were caught exceeding the speed limit in just 30 minutes with a top speed of 42 miles an hour. In Department of Transport report released last year, it was shown that 54% of all drivers break the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. Unenforced speed limits are not enough. The only way to keep pedestrians safe is infrastructure, such as controlled crossings. The proposal is for an uncontrolled crossing. This is not a pedestrian crossing at all, just drop curbs and nothing more. Secondly, cyclists. As campaigns coordinator with Cycle Seahaven, I asked our 400 members for feedback, which was submitted to the consultation. This section of road is part of the National Cycle Network Route 2 and the Avenue Vert, a popular route from London to Paris. I'm not sure if you know, but over 10,000 cyclists enter Newhaven on the ferry from France every year. The submitted design only provides for a shared path. A cyclist would have to travel on the road, then join the shared path for a few metres over the bridge before rejoining the carriageway. There is no cycling infrastructure either side of the bridge. I'm sure you can see this is dangerously inappropriate. A person on a bike coming down the hill could be travelling in excess of 20 miles an hour when expected to join a shared path. If cyclists would carry on over the bridge and not use the shared path, it would antagonise many drivers, as can be seen when cyclists use the road between Seaford and Newhaven. Department for Transport's key design principle states cyclists must be separated from pedestrians. A narrower pedestrian path and separate cycle path would be much more appropriate. My third point is about traffic in Seaford. Traffic currently queues at the bridge at peak times, partly due to the lack of alternative routes. Once traffic can flow unimpeded, it will keep flowing until it reaches a restriction such as Sutton Corner roundabout or the station roundabout. There are already queues at these points at peak times. The Pelican Crossing at Sutton Corner is a particularly busy route for students heading to and from Seaford Head School. If queues through Seaford, what will happen? The Department for Transport Studies shows on minor roads and back roads in East Sussex rose dramatically from 2010 onwards. This coincides with the rise of sat-nav usage. You no longer queue. If there's a faster route, you are guided down minor roads. For example, a queue at Sutton Corner would be, you'll be redirected down Sutton Road past houses, schools, nurseries. I'm concerned that increased traffic in our residential streets will make it more dangerous for walkers and cyclists, not to mention accompanying pollution. If the bridge was to have some form of lights, it would allow planners to control traffic at peak times if it turns out it is necessary. Once the bridge has been constructed, it would be too late to address the situation. Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak on this application? Then I open it to the committee. And who would like to lead on this application? Any hands up? Councillor Borman.
Thank you, Chair. I do have to agree with the pedestrian crossing. At the moment, when I walk down there, as one car goes over the bridge, you're able to cross before anything comes the other way. With two flowing traffic, you could be waiting there for a long time to cross. So it does need some form of crossing there. But apart from that, I am happy with the plans that they've jointly supported. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Meek.
Thank you, Chair. I think we're all kind of relieved that something's happening with Exeat Bridge, at least. I have to agree with Simon McFarlane about the pedestrian crossing and Councillor Liz Borman. I think it's madness not to have any kind of control for pedestrians in order to, they could be wait for ages, and then of course you'll take a risk to jump across the traffic. If it's very heavy bank holiday traffic, for instance, you won't be able to get across. The National Park Policy Framework suggests or stipulates that cyclists and pedestrians should have priority. Well, you can't have priority if you're not given priority. So you will just be taking your life in your hands. And I think we're seeing more and more people coming to the National Park. In fact, the National Park is encouraging people to come, particularly people who've never been before. And I think we must make it safe and user-friendly for sustainable transport. At the moment, what we're seeing is that cars are being prioritised because everyone's been fed up for so long with the bottlenecks on the bridge. But it seems to me it's a huge oversight when government policy is to support sustainable transport, not to have that profit infrastructure in place to start with. I think that's a great shortcoming, and I think Seaford Town Council ought to object to that part of it at least, and say that that needs to be looked at in much more detail, so that, because we've got pedestrians coming down one side of the road, and you've got a cycle network, the C2, I think, just comes down across the fields now to the Cutmere Inn. So you must be able to get back onto the roadway again. And as Simon says, there's no cycle lane as such. So I think the whole thing needs to be looked at again. Apart from that, I think it's a good design for the bridge. Thank you very much, Chair.
Go from their cars to the train, and also, car parking will be limited, so that would be a natural sort of persuasion to go for the train. Shall I mention that? Yeah. We've had discussions with South Downs National Park Authority a couple of times in the last year. We've had Zoom meetings specifically about the impending purchase of the Country Park complex, thereby from East Sussex County Council to the National Park Authority, and the plans, members know that the plans have been approved for refurbishing and extending the use of the buildings there, for adding accommodation, to make it into a proper holiday country park centre, rather than at the moment it's just a collection of buildings that haven't had much recent investment, whereas the National Park Authority have the resources to invest. That in itself is a slight worry in that it'll generate more traffic once it's up and running, so separate from the issue of the bridge. But one of the suggestions that we've made, if you like, on behalf of the residents of Seaford, to counter the inevitable increase in traffic, is to have a shuttle bus service from Seaford Station, which already advertises itself as Seaford for the Seven Sisters on the signs at the station. So it already has a link there, a shuttle service from the station to the country park. And it will take some time, always take some time, to persuade people to forsake their cars and go on the train. But that is one positive move that we've already mentioned, and which the National Park Authority said that they will have a look at. Because there is also, there's going to be a very limited amount of car parking at the country park. It's very difficult to envisage much extension of the existing car parks. And the existing car parks in the last year have been shown to be a bit inadequate, with the increase in people visiting the park through the various lockdowns for inevitable reasons. So that is something that we will continue to press for, because I think that is one of the positive ways in which we can achieve a bit of sustainability as far as the transport system is concerned, and relieve additional traffic in Seaford, but still ensure that the people who want to visit the park actually get there. So, if members want to support that suggestion, we can maybe add that to any response we make to the National Park Authority.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak on this application? No? The other thing I thought, I mean, it's a long time needed some improvement on Exit, but my worry has been if it was going to create more heavy traffic, like HGV vehicles, sort of being a two-lane bridge, that they'd be able to sort of come through Seaford, and instead of the A27, is it? And I would like to still see that there be a weight restriction on the bridge, so that will not happen. So obviously buses and coaches, but not, you know, the heavy HGV vehicles, which I can envisage would happen if there wasn't a weight restriction.
Yes, lorries are already instructed, coming off the Newhaven ferry, to use the A26 and A27 to go eastwards, and the new port access road is meant to facilitate that. But it's true, you'll still get lorries, either accidentally or on purpose, taking the A259 if it suits them. So if members agree, that could be added to our response on the application.
Yes. I've got his name. Wait, no. Payne. Councillor Payne.
Yeah. Could I say I actually disagree with that, because the SUV would have to come through Eastbourne, over the side, down into Seaford, then through Seaford itself. Unless it's going to Seaford or Newhaven, it wouldn't use that road. You know, anything going anywhere past that will use the A27, and Peacehaven, obviously. But anything other than that, they will use the 27, because it's just too slow.
Yeah. I'm just envisioning, you know, when drivers are using sat-navs, they take them the shortest distance.
Yeah, but the 27 will still be shortest because it'll be fastest. If you look on the sat nav and you go fastest route and you come from Eastbourne to here, it will take you to 27. Yeah. Sorry, Eastbourne to Brighton, it will take you to via the 27 because it's the speed. And lorry drivers do like the larger roads. Yeah. And my dad was one, so I know.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank
you very much. I still think it's worth that.
Yeah, I think heavy traffic coming from the east, the road signs will indicate that they should take the A27 from the east, you know, to Beddingham and then down to Newhaven. I think all the signs indicate that. If the drivers don't take any notice of the signs, well, and that's up to them. But I think that's the general idea, to keep heavy goods vehicles off the A259.
Yeah. Any more comments? No. Was she proposing? So Councillor Boorman proposed to support the application with
Controlled pedestrian crossings. What about separation of cyclists and pedestrians? More consideration? Yeah. I'll just take a few points down. Weight restrictions.
Cyclists.
So I say in the longer term, consideration given to a shuttle service from Seaford Station to the Country Park to relieve traffic. I mean, that can't happen straight away, but in the longer term, weight restrictions.
I also like that they're not making a bus lay-by at the bus stops, so that is a form of traffic calming. I think that's
What about the speed limit? It's suggested
30, isn't it?
Yeah, 30 was what's intended. One of the speakers mentioned 20 being a possibility, but so you might want to consider that.
Do you want to 20? 20?
Or consideration of a 20-mile-an-hour limit. Yeah. You just put that down. So the points I've got are to support it, subject to the provision of a controlled rather than uncontrolled pedestrian crossing. Further consideration being given to the separation of pedestrians and cyclists. Consideration of the continuation of the weight restriction. In the longer term, consideration of a shuttle bus service to relieve the amount of traffic going to the country park over the bridge from Seaford. Welcome the fact that there's no bus lay-by, which should help with traffic calming, and consideration be given to a 20-mile-an-hour limit rather than a 30-mile-an-hour limit on account of the number of pedestrians and cyclists that will be attracted to the area in interest of highway safety. So those points to be added.
Does that find a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Meek. And can I have a show of hands of supporting this application?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's unanimously supported. 8 votes to none. Thank you.
Moving on to SDNP/20-05259/LIS, Edric House, Grutton Lane, Bishopstone Village. Listed building consent application for repairs to existing 4 chimney stacks. The work will include some replacement of the cairn stone with exactly the same stone and repointing with suitable lime mortar. Any members of the public like to comment on this application? And it's open to the committee. Anybody like to lead on this one? Councillor Edson.
Madam Mayor, can I
Sorry?
Can I move that we support this application?
Yes. And seconded by Councillor Everton. Any other comments? So can I have a show of hands supporting this application?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Supported.
Planning applications received in the week commencing Monday the 3rd of May. LW/21/0275, 35 Carlton Road, part single and part double storey, single extension. Members of the public like to comment on this application? Open to the committee. Anybody like to lead on this one? Anybody? Councillor Bull.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. When I was looking at this application, I felt it was very, very large for the site. And I think it's actually an overdevelopment of the site. So, in my opinion, I would object to this application, and that's my proposal.
Thank you. Does that find a seconder, Councillor Argent? You're seconding. Thank you. Do you want to comment? No. Councillor Meek.
Just wondered, Chair, if Jeff would comment on the overdevelopment aspect, whether he, in his consideration, it's overdevelopment.
Thank you.
Well, it's quite a large development, but it's infill. As I recall, it's behind a garage. There is a balcony at the back as well, which often gives rise to concerns about privacy. Yes, it is large, but looking at it, I mean, making notes for myself on the application, it had an impact on property at the rear, but I mean, I saw it as quite finely balanced. So, if members do consider it an overdevelopment, you know, that's something that can be argued. As I say, personally, I found arguments both ways on it. But
thank you. So we've got on the table of objecting to this application on the grounds of overdevelopment, and it's a proposal by Councillor Borman and seconded by Councillor Argent. If there's no other comments, can I have a show of hands of objecting on those grounds?
1, 2, 3, 4 in favour of objection.
And those supporting the application?
1, 2, 3. That's objection is carried by 4 votes to 3.
Thank you. Planning applications received in week commencing Monday the 10th of May. LW/21/0261, 3 Hawth Close. Removal of front... Sorry, I didn't quite...
Sorry, Chair. I declared interest in this particular, another person. I was actually looking at the property, not the person, so I actually proposed it. Would you please strike my proposal from the actual minutes? Because I actually know the person. I declared an interest. Do beg your pardon.
Right, thank you, Councillor Gould. Okay.
This application?
On Carlton Road.
On Carlton Road?
Yeah. I don't think it makes any difference anymore. It doesn't make any difference.
Sorry?
He's just saying he shouldn't have proposed it because of the entrance.
Oh, I see. I didn't record it anyway. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right. 3 Horth Close, removal of front porch, creation of 2-storey side and rear extension with gable end rendered to each elevation of property. Any members of the public like to comment on this application? Open to the committee. Who would like to lead on this one? Councillor Edson.
Madam Mayor, this extension really does look large, but it overlooks a slope. So, you know, I don't think it's over in any shape or form. And I think it overlooks the brickfield, isn't it? Something like that, yeah. So I propose that we support this. Thanks.
Okay. That's that proposal, Councillor Edson. Yeah. And does that pass, Councillor Borman?
Yeah, I'm quite happy to second that. When I looked at it, I thought, wow, this is large. And then when you realise there is a big slope and it doesn't have any impact on that. I was a little bit worried about the colour that they're using on it, but apart from that, I'm quite happy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Borman. Yes, it is quite a steep incline on the back. Right, no other comments. Can I have a show of hands of supporting this application?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's unanimous in support. 8 votes to none.
LW/21/0187, 127 North Way. Retrospective variation of Condition 1 plans of application LW/19/0607 for the following changes. Additional window to north elevation, replacement of window/doors on the east elevation of host dwelling with sliding patio doors, change of doors on the east elevation of the extension to 1 sliding door and raised extension height by 200 millimetres, addition of the overhang to dormer roof. Any members of the public like to comment on this application?
Madam Chair.
Would you like to come up to the microphone, please?
Good evening. Thank you to the committee. Thank you to the chair for hosting this evening. So I'd like to bring to your attention our concerns in relation to the retrospective planning application sought by our next door neighbour. The reference is Lima Whiskey 210187. I'd like to point out that points 1 and 2 on the application have been omitted from the applicant's design and access statement. These alterations only appear on the elevation plans under intense scrutiny. The revised balcony plans have increased in size from the original approved plans in October of 2019, LW190607. The approved plans permit a balcony of 2.5 metres to the east elevation. The new revised plans, LW210187, show an increase of 0.5 metres to the first floor balcony. This equals a distance of 3 metres times 13.8 metres, running from the north elevation to the south elevation. The revised plans, LW210187, now extend to the very edge of the ground floor extension, again totalling 13.8 metres. The original approved plans, LW190607, do not permit this. The original approved balcony plans show an approximate 80 centimetres on either side of the perimeter of the balcony. The new revised plans submitted will take the proposed first floor balcony right up to the edge of the applicant's flat roof, therefore allowing a distance of 13.8 metres by 3 square metres. This will extend all the way to our party wall and further reduce and negate any degree of privacy. The revised plans, LW210187, make no mention of the conditions set by Seaford Town Council's original approved plans on LW 190607, which detail the requirement for obscure frosted glass to protect the neighbouring property's privacy, with a condition that the balcony must be of a height of a minimum of 1.1 metres. The applicant's design and access statement, LW 210187, states there were no objections to the applicant's original approved plans. It's important to note, Madam Chair, that both occupants either side of the build at 127 were deceased. 125, our home, and 129 were therefore unoccupied at the time the applicant submitted the original proposed building plans, which were approved by Seaford Town Council and Lewes District Council in October of 2019. One other person was notified of the proposed plans but did not register an objection. The design and access statement also mentions the previous planning officer's report, which would grant alterations to the roof height of the extension and alteration to the windows and doors. The report, however, does not support the inclusion of a rain shelter overhang of 1.1 metres, yet it appears on the resubmitted plans once again. The rain shelter overhang is 1.1 metres. It's fitted with 6 spotlights and 32 air vents and a Bluetooth speaker. The rain shelter gives the upstairs an even more overbearing and dominant feature, causes us loss of light into our east-facing garden. It was not part of the original approved plans, LW 190607. The applicant has already built this structure. The applicant was granted an already generous sized plot by Seaford Town Council in October 2019. This was endorsed due to no objections by Lewes District Council. The applicant has overextended his build by 0.5 metres on the east-facing ground floor extension and increased the extension height by 20 centimetres, ascending to 30 centimetres. This increase of 0.5 metres was not mentioned in the planning officer's report submitted by Mr de Havilland Reid of Lewes District Council, reference LW 200387, which is the applicant's second rejected, refused application for this build.
I have to bring you to the end now because you've had over 4 minutes.
Okay. It's not included in the applicant's design and access statement, but it's once again included in the elevation plans. To bring it to a close, Madam Chair, if I may, 127 Northway was originally a single-storey, 3-bed, 1-bathroom bungalow in an area entirely comprising of bungalows. This new build entirely dwarfs our dwelling, causing us loss of natural light and overshadowing. The rear-sized east-facing garden is entirely overlooked by the applicant's oversized structure.
I have to bring you to a close now. Thank you.
We object to LW 210187. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, committee.
Right, open to the committee. Who would like to lead on? Councillor Lord.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, residents of 125 Northway. Yes, I've had a look at this particular property on at least 2 occasions with the invitation of the residents. I remember this application going all the way back, and I think we commented on the time and the fact that it's quite a crude paper drawing. And I don't think we really was to scale. We had looked at it. It looked about right. We felt about right, and we obviously approved it. However, when you see the original application we submitted to Seaford Town Council and Lewes District Council as the basic paper sketch and what's on site now, the two do not marry up. You have one thing which is basically an extension to a bungalow, which we all think that's fair enough. We agree with that. What you've got now is basically a bungalow which has been converted into a rather large house-stroke dormer property. It has a balcony which is quite imposing. In addition to that, the height of the property is not in keeping with the area. It's benefited by the fact that on the front elevation, when you drive down the road, you can't see it. So simply walking down the road, that street line looks as it should be, nice, crisp and even. It's when you go around the back of the property, you realise how big this extension is. And I think, and to be perfectly honest with you, Madam Chairman, if we'd have seen the size of this extension on a rather crude drawing right at the very, very beginning, I think would have raised objections or concerns regarding the fact that, in actual fact, you're doubling the size of the footprint of the property. And I think, in all honesty, I think we were slightly misled at the beginning of this application. And there's been sort of mirrors and smoke screen all the way through it, and by the particular resident at 127. So I'm not comfortable that I could actually support this application at this present moment in time, unless the situation and circumstances change. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Borman.
Thank you, Chair. When I was reading the design statement, the applicant mentioned that there'd been no objections to the plans. Well, these aren't the original plans that were submitted. And there was no objections if they'd built it correctly in the first place. I haven't any issues with the windows and sliding doors. They fit in and they're reducing some of the sizes and changing some of the windows and doors. I have no problems with that. But the balcony and the rain shelter, I have huge concerns with. They are unsympathetic, unneighbourly, they're overbearing, and they do have an adverse impact on the neighbours, both sides and around. So I would object to this application again. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. That's the proposal. Does that find a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Lord. Councillor Meek.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to say that in addition to that, there is actually also in the garden a huge garden building at the bottom of the garden, which of course doesn't have a particular bearing on the house, but as regards development of the whole property, I think it takes up an awful lot of space, so that the impact of the buildings in that property, it is very overdeveloped now, I think. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Meek. Anybody else like Councillor Everton?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I've also been up and had a look at the property, and it is a really sort of overbearing for the neighbours, especially if you look at where the balcony and the rain shelter is going to go. I think it really impacts on the neighbours, and I'd like to second the proposal that we reject this.
Thank you, Councillor Everton. Anybody else like to make a comment on this application?
Can I just make a few comments about the letters of support you mentioned about the letters of support? About the letters of support, and you mentioned it before the meeting. I better mention about the fact that we circulated the objection because of the problems on the website, but there are also letters of support from the other side. And also, can I mention about...
Sorry, I can't catch everything you're saying.
Can I mention about the balcony not being mentioned?
Councillor Borman mentioned about the balcony.
Yeah, basically the fact printed text is not mentioned in the description of the development on the current application.
They've changed the wording of the application.
Oh, right.
But they haven't changed the design,
I see. Yeah,
So although the wording's changed, the design's exactly the same.
I see. There's just a couple of points. Just harking back to the preliminary, to the week or so before this meeting, there was a problem on the website in that an inappropriate letter of support had appeared from the daughter of the applicant, which the council had to remove from the website. And initially, the council also removed the objector's quite detailed objection to the application, which she's gone through tonight, which is why I took the step of, in case that didn't reappear on the website, I circulated it to members. But but having circulated that letter of objection to members before this meeting, I should also point out that since then, although the applicant's daughter's letter hasn't reappeared, there have been a couple of letters of support from neighbours on the other side of 127 North Way. That's 129 and 131, I think. Certainly 131. But obviously the objection from 125 North Way still stands. I was also querying the fact that the description on the agenda doesn't include the retention of the balcony as it stands. But I wasn't aware, probably hadn't picked up. There's been quite a few emails going back and forth. I wasn't aware that the description, which appears on the website, has been amended to include the retention of the balcony. But it's not mentioned, I don't think, in the description on the agenda. Must have been amended quite recently. But I was going to suggest querying the fact that the balcony, which obviously features in the application, isn't referred to in the description on your agenda. But so there's just a few sort of indirect matters to point out before you come to a vote.
Thank you. Right, well, we have on the table a proposal objecting to this application by Councillor Borman and seconded by Councillor Lord with concerns. Can you repeat?
There's no issue with the windows and the sliding doors, but concern over the balcony and the rain shelter, which are considered to be overbearing and interfere with the privacy and amenity of the neighbouring occupier at 125.
Yeah. Is that fine with Councillor Seconder? Okay, so can I have a show of hands of objecting to this application?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's a unanimous objection, 8 votes to none.
Thank you. Go on to LW/21/0190, Pear Tree House, 77 Furl Road. 2-storey front extension, installation of roof lights in front plane of roof, increase of bridge height, first floor extension above existing garage on the northeast elevation, installation of 3 dormers to the rear, including balcony. Any members of the public like to comment on this application? So open to committee. Anybody like to lead on this one? Councillor Meek.
Thank you, Chair. I went up and had a look at this. It's a huge extension. I mean, interestingly, it doesn't kind of take up any more of the footprint of the house, I don't think. It's got a very big porch at the moment, and I think it's going to take up that porch. It's just going to go straight upwards to a huge atrium, glass atrium, which obviously lights the stairwell and everything like that. I feel that where it is, you can understand why they want to build it. It goes well into the roof space and provides a huge master bedroom. The only thing that I think would be objectionable is that I think it goes really close to the neighbour on the right property with a huge sloping roof that comes down. I would have thought would take light away from their windows on that side because it completely overhangs the garage. It goes right over the garage. But apart from that, what I notice is that there aren't any objections to it. So I intrinsically don't object to it, but I just feel that there might be a problem with light for the neighbour, but as they haven't objected, I don't know if that's pertinent.
Are you making a proposal? Okay, thank you. Councillor Everton? Councillor Borman?
Thank you, Chair. Look at this, I'm really in two minds. It is very like the next door neighbours in design with the big front porch, and that I'm quite happy with. I do not like the black aluminium windows frames. Everywhere else in the neighbourhood's all white UPVC, and it really does, I think, will stand out like a sore thumb being black. So in some ways I do want to support it, but the black aluminium windows I can't support. So I'm still in two minds of what to do, I'm afraid.
Councillor Lord.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Bourne. Yeah, the application is good. Winfield Road, we've got to show off. So we're building a nice big extension. Black windows are the old white. The new way forward is grey and black. So all the applications that will be coming before the council in the next 3, 5, 10 years, white plastic windows are out, grey and black are in. This is a new beginning of the colour of windows, whether we like it or not. Just thought I'd mention it. I actually support the application, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Everton, did you?
Yes, I was just going to say that I support the application. I know it's a big build, and normally I'm a bit funny about huge extensions, but actually the size of the house itself, a small extension is not going to work on it, so I don't mind the colour of the windows. I'm seeing a lot of changes around the town. People are going for the black windows. I think they're more environmentally friendly. Like they're the new type of double glazing. People are moving away from the white UPVC ones, so I'm happy to support the application.
Thank you, Councillor. We've got a proposal to support the application, and Councillor Evans seconded. So we'll see. Okay. Right. So we've got on the table to support this application, proposed by Councillor Lord and seconded by Councillor Everton. Can I have a show of hands of supporting this application?
Yeah. That's carried. Supported.
LW/21/0349, 14 Sandgate Close, single-storey rear and side extension. Any members of the public like to comment on this application? Open to the committee. Councillor Lord. Sandgate. Find a seconder. Councillor Borman. Any other comments? And can I have a show of hands of supporting this application?
That's carried 7 votes to none.
Thank you.
1 abstention.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Interest, yeah. That's unanimous.
LW/21/0199, 13 Mason Road, replacement of single-storey conservatory with a single-storey orangery. Members of the public like to comment on this application? Open to the committee. Councillor Mead. Thank you, Councillor Lord. Any other comments? So can I have a show of hands of supporting this application?
That's supported unanimously. Thank you.
LW/21/0218, 31 Clementine Avenue, creation of a single-storey rear extension and internal alterations. Any members of the public like to comment on this application? It's open to the committee. Councillor Lord?
Yes, I propose it, Chair.
Does that find a seconder? Councillor Argent? Any other comments? So can I have a show of hands of supporting the application?
That's supported unanimously. Thank you.
Tree applications. TW/21/0024/TPO 10 Charlton Close. Do you want me to read all this out? It's quite a list. So, any members of the public like to comment on this application? Open to the committee. Councillor Mead.
Thank you, Chair. There's a lot of trees here, and I can understand, you know, maintaining them is fine, but it seems there are 4 trees to be felled here. Some due to, well, 2 due to infection and 2 due to being poor specimens or tall and drawn. I would like to hope or suggest that we advise that there should be replantings of 4 trees in their stead, not just being felled and we lack 4 trees in that case. So I propose that we support it, but we would stipulate that there should be planting of 4 trees suitable to that area, and perhaps if they are of the same species, they would have to be resistant to ash dieback or whatever. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Does that find a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Ball. Councillor Lord, did you want to speak?
I second the proposal from Councillor Mead. I must also say, as a mandatory requirement of felling any tree, you've got to put trees back in the place. I recently went on a course for ash dieback. There's no resistant ash currently in the UK, but what they have found is that ash whips, the small whips that come up from an ash tree, and this is very important for us in the UK, the ones which have fallen from a diseased tree, the second generation of them, which are 5, 6, 7 years old, they're actually showing resistance to ash dieback. So with a bit of luck, we should be in a position where we can start planting ash trees, but the ash trees can only be planted from the whips which have fallen from dead ash trees. So you can't plant ash seedlings, they won't grow. They fall foul to the disease. So there is hope on the horizon for us. So with a bit of luck, in the next 5, 10, 15, possibly 20 years, we'll have a disease-resistant ash tree in the UK. Unfortunately, as I've gone on my trees, because I'm a tree man, oak trees are now falling to another kind of disease. And it's very important now that what we can do is to get whips from oak trees, which are falling now and seedlings are growing to about 12 months old, that we actually take this opportunity, and I think Councillor Ebden and I have got some ideas for this, to take the whips, it's called a whip because it's like a whip that comes from an oak tree, and actually look at planting some of these in Seaford. And we're hoping to probably get, is it about 100, Councillor Ebden, is that right? To get 100 of these healthy oak tree whips and plant them in and around Seaford, so we've actually got something to celebrate, not only 100 oak trees, but also the end of the First World War. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Slightly digressed there. Any other comments? So can I have a show of hands of supporting this application and asking for
replacement for the felled trees?
So
Thank you. That's supported unanimously.
Moving on to agenda item 5, Talon Parade Update Report on pages 13 to 17. I'd like to thank our planning officer for putting this report together. It's nice to, you know, have an update on one of Seaford's unfortunate eyesores. The committee is asked to note the report and adopt it as the Town Council's position statement, and 2, to agree to request a meeting with Lewes District Council to discuss a possible joint approach to securing a permanent solution to the problem. And I think it would be good that our planning officer, you know, can be, sort of have meetings on, you know, with LDC so he can keep us updated.
Yes, I think obviously it's one of the most complex and long-standing problems in the town, which a lot of the residents, and well, all members and a lot of residents are concerned about. So I think it's a case where we would like to be, if you like, represented on the group of officers at Lewes District Council who are having to deal with the problem, because it goes across quite a few fields: housing, planning, and legal issues involved. Quite, and yes, and highways. And rather than have reports back, we're asking if you have a special treatment in this case, which we think is warranted, of actually being able to sit with the officers at LDC when they're having the meetings about this. This was the situation a couple of years ago before the lockdown. The former town clerk used to meet on a relatively regular basis to discuss the various problems and how they were going to deal with them. Obviously, as with a lot of matters, it's gone dormant since the first lockdown in March 2020 for various reasons, but it needs to be revived now. We're quite happy that Lewes District Council are taking it as seriously as it should be taken. The Cabinet member is involved personally. It's been to a number of full council meetings as set out in the report. But as far as going forward is concerned, we would like to, if you like, either through the town clerk or myself, or both of us, be represented at the meetings, which they obviously are holding to deal with this, rather than have second-hand reports back. So that's the point we're making, really, and we're looking for the committee's support to try and persuade Lewes to adopt that approach with us. But as I say, there shouldn't be too much criticism of Lewes on this, because it is a difficult problem, and they have shown to be attempting to respond to it. It's just there's no easy solution to it, unfortunately.
Thank you. Would anybody like to make further comments or on this report? So, can I have a proposer and seconder? I think we'll take 1 and 2 together. Thank you, Councillor Meek, and seconded by Councillor Payne. And can I have a show of hands, please?
That's carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item 6 on page 18. To present details of a request to have Crouch Lane Road made a one-way system. And you're recommended to consider the highway safety issues raised by a local resident and decide whether his request to East Sussex Highways for Crouch Lane to be made one-way should be supported. Anybody like to lead on this one? Any comments? Councillor Borman?
Thank you, Chair. I fully appreciate that this is a real issue for this resident, but as you know, Bishopstone Junction has had much bigger issues and has had major accidents, but still no fatalities yet. And East Sussex have been saying to us that they're still waiting to do something at Bishopstone Junction because there's been no fatalities. It may not happen. Whereas this road hasn't had any fatalities. So although we might want to support the resident, I think East Sussex will come back and say there is no requirement for it, there is no need for it, and will not do it. Although I do sympathise with the resident.
Thank you, Councillor Borman. Councillor Meek?
Thank you, Chair. Just to pick up on that point, I do believe there has been a fatality at Bishopstone Junction. Is that right, Simon? I think there has been a fatality there, and they still haven't done anything about it. So I rather agree with Councillor Borman. One empathises with the circumstances of this particular applicant. I went and looked at the road myself, not being particularly well acquainted with it, actually. And it seems to me that, I mean, it's the bottom part of the road that is two-way. The top half, when it goes into High Street, is one-way anyway. It seems to me that it's only the very bottom part of the road which is in a poor state of repair. As soon as you go past the entrance to the car park there, it's been resurfaced all the way up beyond there. So actually, it's only a very small part of the road that is in a poor state of repair. However, having said that, I would support one-way systems being made in the narrow roads in Seaford, just for traffic calming, but also, on another point, to encourage and make available the opportunity for cycle lanes to be put in. I think we've got a lot of narrow streets in Seaford, and cars are passing very close together, and from a traffic calming point of view, I would support it on that reason, which isn't, I understand, this reason, but that's why I would support the application for that reason. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Mead. Councillor Everton.
Hi, yes, I've been down and looked as well, and the road's not in too bad a repair, actually, if you compare to what else is going on around the town. It's actually not too bad a one, even though it's not acceptable. The way that the houses are built with the driveway coming down, it is quite visible, actually. I drive up and down the road, and their driveways are really visible, but I understand because of this person's in a wheelchair that it's difficult for them. And I wouldn't support really it being one way, but it might be an idea because of the way those houses have been built with that sloping driveway to look at traffic calming or possible a reduction in the speed there, so that you're slower as you approach them and you can see cars coming out of that driveway or this gentleman in his wheelchair. So traffic calming I would support, but I wouldn't support one-way system.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Everton. Councillor Payne.
I would support the one-way system for a different reason. If you had the one-way going down towards the car park, it would make, and the other road coming up, it would actually stop anybody. It would give the car park an entrance and an exit, rather than some people trying to come round and sort of try and block it. So I think it would be an advantage for it to be one way, but it would obviously cause a complication, because as you come into it from the other side road, which I can't remember, you'd have two one-ways going in separate directions. So it just really would be a problem with signage rather than anything else.
Thank you. Councillor.
Yeah, the guy we're talking about is called Sam. I actually know him. He's not a bad bloke, actually. I've got a lot of time for him. There's lots to do with Rotary and whatnot. However, we've got to be mindful of this, in so much the fact that he bought the house which was built. The house was built and approved by Seaford Town Council and Lewis District Council. He could have moved into any house in the United Kingdom, Great Britain, or in Seaford. The fact he chose a house, I must admit, they're nice bungalows, because I know Simon Wiley actually built them as well. That's another story.
I don't think we should get...
No, there's no. What I'm saying, Chair, is this, right? By doing that, there's also a one-way system at Saxon Lane. So that's got to go one way. So the only way for this road to go crossing is the opposite way, because you've got to have a one-way system opposite way. And it doesn't work when you come to the end of Saxon Lane, because you're at Broad Street. You come on Crouch, where do you go from there? It doesn't work. The problem is the T-junction at the bottom, not a one-way system. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Right, now, we have before us, to consider if we're going to support this. Does anybody want to propose that we do support a request to East Sussex Highways to have a one-way system? Councillor Mead, does that find a seconder? Councillor Payne. And can I have a show of hands of supporting?
1, 2, 3. 3 in support of the request.
And those against?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's voted down by 5 votes to 3. So we need another proposition. What?
Yes, so
we've got a sort of negative resolution. We really need a proposal, if you like, not to support it for various reasons, if you like. Yeah. I think that would round things off. Yeah. So if somebody would like to propose that, I think that would be easiest.
Councillor Lord.
Something on lines that it's a complicated...
Can you come up to the... Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. Sorry, Jeff, perhaps you could say something on lines. We've got a one-way system in place in Saxon Lane, and if we introduce another one-way system, it will then congest the road either in and around the Con Club, because at the top of the Con Club, there's another one-way system as well. So you're introducing 2 one-way systems in quite a congested area, and what we're going to have the situation with people, what they do now, they cut across the carpet from one side to the other. So the carpet will then be a through street, basically, or through access between 2 one-way systems if they don't want to go one way or the other. So we are solving one problem and creating lots of others. It's so narrow around there anyway. Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Is there any sort of, if there's an acknowledgement that the traffic flows in the area need to be considered by East Sussex County Council, but not specifically a one-way system as proposed by the complainant, but in order for something constructive to go forward, I would just suggest that Councillor Lord's proposal that a one-way system would not be supportable because it would be too complicated, but that nevertheless the traffic systems and the road services in the area need to be considered by East Sussex County Council for highway safety reasons brought forward by the complainant or something like that. Well, okay. So if you're happy to adopt that, then you can vote on that.
Okay. Councillor Meek.
Thank you, Chair. Could I just say that this discussion is symptomatic of the fact that there's too much traffic in Seaford per se, perhaps, and therefore any way that we could calm traffic down, and this is a gentleman who wants to get around in a mobility thing, which means he's having the difficulty. We've already had, I've had residents complain about the fact that we don't have enough disability provision in the town anyway, either for parking disability vehicles or for people to get off curbs, to get onto pavements, to be able to get themselves around in mobility or wheelchair usage. So I think we do have to consider this. So it's very pertinent that we're talking about this, I think, and going forward, Seaford Town Council as a body, we need to look at this, I think, for all our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Everton.
Yes, I'm just with what Councillor Meek said there. This is very true, but the problems with this town is the same with a lot of towns like this. It's an old town, and the roads and pavements were built hundreds of years ago, and they don't support modern living, and it's very difficult without construction and knocking things down to get around what is a modern living on roads that are 100 years old and built for carts and footpaths that are this wide. So we have to take into consideration the history of the town as well and preserving some of its historical features, and unfortunately that's narrow roads and narrow pavements as well. So.
Thank you. Anybody else like to comment? So we've adjusted the recommendation now to...
Yes, well, Councillor Lord was proposing not to support the formal one-way system because it would conflict with existing road systems and another one-way system in the area and cause complications and congestion, but that the County Council be asked to consider the general highway safety issues in the area, including improvement of the road surface as well. Is that okay?
Does that find a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Edson. And can I have a show of hands, please?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's carried.
Those against?
So it's carried 7-1.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 7. To present details of a road closure application for Keydale Road on the 11th of September 2021. And just generally to forward any comments on the application to Lewes District Council. Anybody like to lead on this one? Councillor Bowman?
Thank you, Chair. I think it's lovely that residents of this road have got together to form a street party for the day, so I fully support the application.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments? No? So can I have a show of hands of supporting this application?
That's supported unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. And that, I think, brings us to the end of this meeting, and I'd like to thank everybody for coming, and safe journey home.
Thank you. 8:20.